Dan, in regards to the BPs, Zach Gall and the Fireside Chat suggested a stepped approach where you go, one BP to two with certain time periods approved by the ENF. Would you be open to something like that?
Yeah, and it's really easy to start, is to allow the chief delegates to appoint a single block producer. You don't need all of Fractally in order to start moving in the direction of block producers that are selected by the community. And the code change necessary to allow chief delegates to appoint a block producer is relatively minor.
Yeah, I like that idea. That was when I first saw the proposal of, which I'm actually not a super fan of. I will admit, I don't like the idea of having DPoS doing this for a cluster and then this subjective group just picking the other BPs. I like the idea of where the fractals, the council could be like the OIG in WAX, where they don't pick the individual BPs, but they vet them. They have relationships with them. They remove the sock puppets via this relationship, and they create then a menu of BPs that then DPoS does its thing. And at least then you have this overlap between the two systems versus two systems kind of running independent.
So effectively give the chief delegates veto power. Says you are not a block producer. And then DPoS picks the rest. Fully executed, you could directly choose the BPs by picking exactly 21 and vetoing everyone else. And it doesn't matter who DPoS votes at that point. But I suppose you could say the problem is there's an infinite number of sock puppets that you could potentially have to veto. So it's a challenge. Another option is to have synthetic stake. Give Eden voting weight equal to an exchange or two. And then you can start throwing that around as a way of having influence in DPoS disproportional to your stake, but not entirely selecting it. And then that synthetic weight can be adjusted.
Can you, I don't understand that, Dan. Can you try to explain that again?
With block producers are just an algorithm where you sum all the stake weight that's voting for them, and then you sort it, and they take the top 21. So these are just numbers that are being added up. It's possible to say that the Eden account has the weight of 100 million EOS. And then they can throw that around and sort of set the base, right? These are all the ones that we approve, and they pick 30 that they just give 100, and then the rest of the network goes and they do whatever they're going to do. You don't control it, but you're a whale, right? The Eden community is a whale, and the whale makes decisions with the chief delegates multi-sig. And yeah, now since the chief delegates are 6 people, you should probably not allow them to, it's not, fractals were growing to 7,000 and they had teams and they had a lot of other things in the checks and balances that made it stronger than Eden chief delegates are. But I would say the principle of giving the chief delegates weight without actually having the tokens is one way to solve it. It would be as if someone like Block One Stake was being used to support a proxy and the chief delegates control the proxy.
You could also, with this idea, apply the same synthetic weight to other Edens of other languages, and then it's not one, like the English-speaking community making decisions. So it's certainly an interesting idea.
Is this a way we can incrementally approach Fractally, the Fractally model without, from Eden, and use Eden to bootstrap a more, non-Pareto control of the network, while then sort of
the reality is there's the ideal, what you would do if you were starting from scratch and you had no rules and constraints from the past, and then there's what you evolve into. And synthetic stake, where Edens are given synthetic stake to help select block producers, might be an easier way to evolve in the direction of balancing out the Pareto distribution of exchanges.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, we have to work with the way things are now. as much as we want to just be able to like flip a switch and change everything. Working with Eden seems to provide some advantages in that regard.
Yeah, this is the more EOS can do to be democratic in nature, to involve more people in the decision-making process, the more trust the broader community will have, and then ultimately the token price will follow that building of trust. And EOS is in a hole because of block one. But I think Eden combined with ENF can have some real potential there. And then, I'm building out fractally, and we can test that with fractals in parallel. And then people see that work, maybe it'd be easier to convince people to adopt something they can see versus being afraid of something they don't understand.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that someone needs to write a proposal for these steps. And I think the community will respond better to like a detailed proposal.